Okay, so in this video, we're gonna talk about how Ranji, who was the OG international cricket celebrity slash prince, how he came back to India and got the throne that was promised to him. Hi, my name is Misha and welcome to Tariki Tales. Okay, so please like this video because it really helped me out, and while you're here, do subscribe. Okay, so getting back to the story of Ranji, now honestly, this guy truly did lead an extraordinary life. I mean, the more I've researched about him, the more mind blown I am. He was born the son of a farmer, made the heir to the throne of Navanagar, and then, suddenly, all of that was taken away from him, but he managed to pave his own path when he went abroad to England for his studies. So it was basically in England that he became this cricketing sensation that we know about today. I've basically covered this entire background, all of this, down to the juicy details in my previous videos, and I'll put that playlist link up here somewhere. I'll also put those links in the description. I'll put those links in the description so you can check them out as well. So it was in 1898, a decade after he had first left India, that Ranji finally came back. At this point, he was coming back from Australia with his tour as part of the English team. In case you've forgotten, he was the first Indian who actually ever played in the English cricket team. Okay, so as I mentioned in my last video, that Ranji's father or foster father, Vibhaji, the guy who was also the ruler of the state of Navanagar, had passed away a few years ago. And now his son, Jaswant Singhji or Jasaji, was supposed to be the heir to the throne of Navanagar. But at this point, Jasaji was way too young, so it would be a couple of years before he would be confirmed as the Jam Sahib of Navanagar. Now, the Jam Sahib is basically what they would call the king of Navanagar. But even at this point in his life, Ranji knew that regardless of the situation, he's not welcomed in Jamnagar, which was the capital of Navanagar. Because, like it or not, he was a threat to the throne of Jasaji. So Ranji kept his distance, but he was determined to get back his throne. And he had kind of tried the official British route initially when Vibhaji had passed away. And he did all this while he was in England and while he was constantly playing cricket as well. He reached out to the British officials in India and asked for his claim on the throne, but they declined and they were like, that's not going to happen. So he realized that he needs to go to India, and that's one of the reasons as to why he came. Once there, he knew that his closest allies would be other princes and Rajkumars that, lived in these princely states around India. Because Ranji did need a lot of allies. Even though his lineage was solid, but his bank account by this time was close to nil. So this trip for Ranji was more or less like a networking trip. He kind of went up and down India and met up with these different Maharajas. He met up with the Maharaja of Patiala. He went to Jodhpur, Calcutta, Mysore, Chial, and of course his hometown, the village of Sarodar. Now his friendship with the Maharaja of Patiala was actually what came in handy later on in life. And one more interesting thing happened on this trip. So the cricketer slash prince Ranji consulted a famous astrologer of the time called Pandit Hareshwar. Now, one of the people present at this consultation was called Roland Wild, and he actually wrote an entire account of what went down. So, the Pandit Hareshwar was invited to a bungalow where there were four people. Tell us, said one of them, which of us four will be a ruler among men? So Hareshwar did the usual. He asked for their date of birth and looked at their palms. And at the end of that, he said, none of you. But in the same room, there was one more person present. And that person was a servant who was basically waving the fan to all of these other four people. And the Pandit asked that, if you don't mind, I would like to check the palm of this servant as well. And he was allowed to do so. This man will be a ruler, he declared. But I see also that he is a ruler in another field. In sports, I think. Now, even though this was a little bit different from what Ranji wanted, but just the fact that this Pandit had mentioned that the person who would become a ruler is already a ruler in sports was motivation enough for Ranji, and happy and content with that, he set sail for England. Then, after many seasons of cricketing, he came back to India in 1904. This time, he was accompanied by Lord Hawke, and their plan was basically to just hang around his hometown of Sarodar and then go lion hunting. And he wanted to do the same thing he did last time, which was kind of network and meet up with all these other princes and Rajkumars. Because you have to remember that Ranji also kind of grew up studying with these people. He went to the Rajkumar College in Rajkot, where the only other students were princes from other princely states. But along with these princes, Ranji also made sure to kind of meet up with important British officials because he realized the importance of keeping up these friendships. And the thing is, a lot of these Britishers were already fans of Ranji because by this point he had become a proper superstar in the realm of cricket. One more thing to note is that a lot of these British officials have actually gone on record saying that when they met Ranji or when they were about to meet Ranji, now they expected a very popular cricket player who's obviously arrogant because he's so popular, and at the same time, they expected this man to be bitter against the British because they had technically denied him his throne. But a lot of them instead found that Ranji has basically kind of very gracefully accepted the Britishers' decision of not giving him the throne of Navanagar and found him overall to be quite charismatic. Now, Ranji had his superstitions, and once more he got in touch with the same Pandit that he had met up when he had first came to India, Pandit Hareshwar. And this time, the Pandit said, "If you do not sit on the Gaddi of Navanagar on 11th March 1907, I will give rupees 2000 to charity and will give up my work." And I've got to say, this Pandit was good. Because even though Ranji himself hadn't put any plans in action at this point, fate intervened and things started to happen. Now, shortly after this reading, the agent to the governor of Rajkot, Colonel Kennedy, had invited a bunch of people over, and these included both Ranji and Jasaji, who by this time had become the Jam Sahib of Navanagar. Now, both of them had accepted the invitation, and Ranji was on his way. Jasaji had already arrived. But when Jasaji found out that Ranji is invited and he's coming, he packed up his bags and he left. People think that this must have been like a reconciliation type of an effort that Colonel Kennedy was trying to put into place, but that never happened. However, a few months later, news came from Jamnagar that Jasaji is severely ill. He had gotten typhoid. And I know nowadays it's very easily curable. Back then, this was a deadly disease, and rarely did anybody survive who would contract the disease. So, after fighting with the disease for a while, Jasaji passes away at the age of 24. And suddenly, there is no obstruction in Ranji's path to the throne of Navanagar. There was nobody other than Ranji that could have been a better fit for the throne at this point. But the straightforward matter was basically drawn out by the British official who was the agent to the governor of Bombay. And historians say that this guy really loved drama. And that's exactly what he was kind of trying to create in this situation. And for some reason, he took his sweet time and didn't just automatically approve Ranji. He spent months on end poring over documentation and this and that. And then at the end, he was like, okay, there's nobody else but Ranji. So Ranji was accepted as a Jam Sahib of Navanagar on 10th March 1907. How spot on was the Pandit Hareshwar that he had said you would sit on the throne before 11th. And he sat on the throne on the 10th. So now obviously there was like a grand ceremony, the crowning of Ranji as Jam Sahib. Now everything about this ceremony was pre-decided by Joshis or astrologers from the exact time as to when the Jam Sahib or Ranji would come off of the train down to when the ceremony should begin, and even the route that should be taken within the city to get to the palace was all decided by these Joshis. The roads were lined with cheering crowds and there were decorations, there were flowers. So it was like a whole beautiful event. Other princes and other Maharajas came in from around India, but it said that everything for this ceremony was kind of borrowed by the state of Navanagar from here and there, because by this point, the state of Navanagar was in shambles and their finances bleak. So there you go. That is how Ranji got back the throne of Navanagar and how this son of a random farmer became a king. And what's interesting is that he got this throne without any scheming. And in this story, honestly, we can feel free to say that fate definitely played a huge part in Ranji's life, because he got the throne without any scheming or bloodshed or any kind of a coup, which is just wow. But So that's it for this video, but just as I mentioned that when Ranji got back the state of Navanagar, the state was doing terribly. And then he basically had to go above and beyond to kind of fix it. And I'm not going to touch upon how or what kind of a ruler Ranji was in this video, but I might end up making another video about it because it's actually quite interesting to see this change in his personality from a cricketer to this leader. One thing I will tell you though, that when Ranji came into power, he actually complained and he wanted to kind of keep his cricketing image like on the down low now, because the thing was that he said, wherever I go, all people want to talk about is cricket or sports. I am there to talk about tariffs. Like, what is this behavior? So, hopefully, another video about that. See you guys next time. And I hope you've all subscribed. Okay? Bye.